Last week, we've installed all the port lights and hatches and all the old railing that we polished and cleaned and reinstalled on the boat. And today is finally time to start installing some new and shiny deck hardware. Starting with the Traveler, we're going to also install the jib and genoa tracks and some of the line organizers. Everything we've got is from a company called Schaefer. It's a US-based company that just makes super solid, robust gear. They're stainless steel to just feel like they're gonna last forever. We actually had some of their blocks on the boat before and we absolutely love them. So for this refit, we decided to go with the best there is on the market, and Uma is just gonna look so amazing. Let's go.
All right, so I'm getting ready to install the Traveler pedestals so that we can get our Traveler up and over the turtle shell and in front of the Dodger. Now those bolts are coming down right here in the cabin top, and the pedestals from Schaefer came with these aluminum backing plates, which would probably work great. But because we are trying to eliminate condensation and thermal bridges inside the boat, any bolt perforating the hull, we've put epoxy little caps on and then sprayed cork over top of it. And so we're planning to do the same thing with these Traveler bolts, which means I'm going to make a backing plate out of G10 instead, and then epoxy that up to the hull so that when the bolts come through, we can put a little epoxy cap on there and then cover it with cork insulation as well. So I need to template out something similar in size, maybe a little bit bigger, and then cut it out of G10 and epoxy it in, and then let that cure, I guess, before I can re-drill those holes. It's gonna be like a multi-step process, but we'll get it done. All right, the epoxy has had a day to cure on the back of these pedestals, so I can re-drill them again from the outside in and then set the bolts, and we can do the epoxy caps on the other side so that they're nice and sealed up. I feel like I've drilled these holes like 4 or 5 times now. So we plan on doing the same epoxy caps, those little like circles that go on the bottom to disconnect that thermal bridge and also to seal them in so that if they ever leak, it's not going to come down the cabin top, basically eliminating as many potential leaky things as we can. We did that on all of our stanchions and basically anything that needs to get through bolted through the deck. Bolted through the deck?
Through bolted.
Through bolted through the deck.
Through deck bolted.
Through deck bolted.
Through
deck
bolted
throw.
deck.
Anyway. It's a really, I mean, we think it's a really good system. It's worked really well in the past. One of the tips that we've learned the hard way is to not over tighten when you're putting the little acorn nuts on the bottom before putting the epoxy in, because then the stainless can gall and then it fucks everything up. We have to knock off the little epoxy caps and do it again. So the only other trick is that they all need to be like the same depth, right? Because you get a washer and then you get the acorn nut on there and you get about 4 millimeters of play either way before it caps out and while it still has enough threads on the nut to actually work. So it's a little bit fiddly to get them all the right way. Sometimes we put like 2 washers on if it's off by a little bit, but generally speaking, we just try to like measure the exact depth of bolt that we need and then buy it or make something to have as a spacer. The other thing that we've been doing is putting a regular nut on first as sort of a test and then tightening it down. And then you can see that there's only like 2 threads sticking out the bottom, which is perfect. So when we put the acorn on, there's plenty of room to play so we can make sure we're not bottoming out in the acorn nut. But all of these are perfect. So we can put washers and nuts on all of them. And then the trick is to just basically hand tighten it. Like put the washer on, you put the acorn on, and then you just give it like a tiny little, just a 100th of a turn past hand tight. And that way, once we put the epoxy caps on, we can actually remove the bolt from the outside and it's not going to gall the stainless. So those are our tips and tricks that we've learned so far. And these are going to work perfectly because all these bolts are exactly the same way. Perfect. Got some extras. That might be it for today, honestly. It's getting kind of late. Yeah, I think it'll be all right. It's like just on the edge of maybe being too thin. You don't really want it to like sag. Yeah, it'll be all right. All right, cool. Well, see you tomorrow. All right, I think one of my biggest tips for getting perfect caulking joints is know when to put the pencils down. You know, like at the end of a test and the teacher's like, pencils down, you can't do anything else because it's over. One thing we've learned from doing like drywall and other projects is that there's a certain point where messing around with it more just makes it worse. And so knowing when to put your pencil down and just leave it alone often results in a better product, a better final result. So this isn't perfect, but I know that once the caulking cures, I can scrape off the little imperfections and slice them with a razor blade, and then it will be perfect rather than trying to mess with it with alcohol now and smearing it up and just messing with the whole thing. So pedestals are installed. We have the Traveler track that goes on top of it, but we need to get the end caps and a few other things in place before we can cut that down to size. So this project is now on hold, which means pretty much everything's installed except for the actual bedding of the Genoa and jib tracks, which we'll be doing tomorrow. So it's late, the sun is setting. You can't actually tell because this camera's awesome, but yeah, it's time to get out of here and get some sleep. It's been a long day. The reality now is that it doesn't matter if the jib track is aligned to the outside. It matters if it's aligned to the non-skid that we already did.
Yeah.
So I have a trick for that. Where's my stick? This is my 1-inch stick. 25 millimeters for those playing at home. And then I just go like this. I line it up with the non-skid, and then I just draw. All right, so we're getting ready to install our jib tracks. These ones are also from Schaefer, but we are going with aluminum instead of the weird like flat stainless thing with the teak riser thing that we had before, which was a total mess. They're actually really easy to bend. We just kind of shoved them between two pieces of wood and kind of got the rough shape to line up with the curve of the deck, and then micro adjustments we can do in between each individual bolt hole, lining it up with the curve of the non-skid. So these also go with M8 bolts, which is nice because they're bigger than our original, so they're going to be even stronger. We just have 70 holes to drill in our boat now. There's no point talking around the airplanes because it's August and there's one landing every 5 minutes.
So we are installing all the tracks for the Genoa and the jib, and one thing that we need to do in order to install them is basically flatten where the boats come through, because right now they come through exactly where there's a dip in the hull. It's basically where the cabin top meets the side deck, and so there's a bit of a, like a little so we have to fill in that gap with epoxy so that everything comes out pretty aligned and straight, so that we can have space for the washer and then the nuts and then the cap that goes on top. Because if things are not flat, then the washers are gonna not have something to push against, and then that's when problems happen. So we want to avoid that, but it needs a lot of epoxy and it's a messy process because I feel like I need way more than I thought I did. So the goal is to basically fill up that gap, like so.
Yeah.
That's the gap we're trying to fill, so that everything is nice and flat.
Why don't you use a Ziploc bag?
When I mix it, right, like I know the consistency is perfect. In order for me to control that consistency, I want to see it on my stick or like spatula, and then so that when I slap it up, it needs to stay. Because if you have a bag and you squeeze it and then you don't know the right consistency, then it's gonna be this liquid mess. I just think for our application, not using a Ziploc bag is better.
how thick our ribs are up near the top, but there's like the layer going this way and then the layer of the bulkhead going that way. Pretty freaking thick. It's as thick as our hull. All right, the epoxy's had the time to harden up quite nicely. So now I'm gonna smooth this out just a little bit, make sure it's nice and flat, and then we can re-drill the holes from the outside. We also over-drilled the holes to 12 millimeter, even though the bolts are only 8. So that way they got nice and full of epoxy, because there's like a tiny little bit of core, kind of like just pushing into the edges of these holes. So we over-drilled them, filled them full of epoxy, and then we'll do the 8 mil holes through them. So there'll be like a nice epoxy donut around the bolt, so nothing will touch the core. Yeah, smooth this up a little bit and then re-drill from the outside, and then we can do the same epoxy little backing caps on here that we're doing everywhere else. And then on the other side too. So the little epoxy caps have all had time to cure inside, and now it's time to actually bed these deliciously beautiful tracks down onto our boat. We're gonna start with the jib tracks because they're kind of easier. And I think the plan is we're just gonna do like little donuts of sealant around each bolt and then set it down. We don't actually need to bed in between. It's not gonna make any difference. It's just more cleanup. I've already covered all the bolts in Tef gel because they're going down inside stainless through on gall. And the stainless is touching the aluminum, so we don't want it to corrode over the years. I feel like we've probably said this 1,000 times before, but Tef gel's awesome. We've used it on anytime stainless touches aluminum, and we've never had issues. It's gonna be kind of hard because like the back of the jib track is kind of blind, so we cut like a tiny little stick that we can get in behind it and like hopefully smear some of that sealant out of the way so that we're never gonna see it, so it doesn't matter, but it's so that there's not a big gob of sealant back there when the jib car goes back and forth and hits it. We haven't talked about having a jib car yet, have we? We're having a jib car because we're having a Solon rig.
We'll talk about that.
We'll talk about that later. I finished installing these line organizers on deck. That's going to be what brings all of the lines back from the mast into the cockpit, like our main halyard and our main sheets and our reefing lines and other mainsail control lines. And today we've got the last few parts we need to install our Traveler. Now, I know back when we started installing these pedestals and the bases, a lot of you guys were wondering why we didn't just curve the Traveler up and over the turtle shell. Instead, we made it straight, and this may answer your question. This is our Traveler bridge. This massive chunk of aluminum, and it's not bending ever. The reason why the Traveler bridge, at least on our boat, should be straight is that we have, we're gonna have a 4-to-1 Traveler blocks on each side. Because the Traveler's mounted mid-boom, it has double the forces of what it had in the cockpit. And so we're gonna have a 4-to-1 block on each side, pulling the Traveler car back and forth. And lines and cars work best in straight lines. If the Traveler was curved, we wouldn't really be able to like pull that car back and forth easily as well. So Traveler bridge needs to stay straight, and that's why we raised it all up, and now we get to finally install it, and it's gonna look so good. So I just cut down some bolts so that they fit. We've got all the bits and pieces we need, and now we can finally bolt the Traveler on. That goes on here. I'm just gonna like pick one. You look good, man.
Yeah.
Welcome to my new bench.
This is nice.
It's a little
Oh, hard.
It's not the best seat in the house. Sweet.
Strong, yeah.
That concludes pretty much the majority of like the new stuff we're bolting on deck. We've got all the hatches in, all the port lights in, the handrails, the windlass, the bow roller, and now all the like the line organizers, jib track, genoa track, the Traveler.
Yeah, I think
She's looking real good.
the only thing missing from up here is the mast.
Mast and then solar. But yeah, the mast is going right underneath the camera. Yeah, we got like cleats and chain plates and stuff to do, but like that'll come later.
Yeah.
This looks pretty good.
We also
Spoiler alert.
covered this because we have something exciting for you next week.
Next week.
But yeah, this is it for this episode then.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
She looks good, man. She's starting to look like a sailboat again.
I know. I'm so excited for everything else.
I think we need to start taking care of the inside soon because the inside still looks like it did 4 months ago. In February, we sprayed the cork.
Yeah.
6
6
months?
months since we touched the inside.
We haven't done anything inside for 6 months.
Almost forgot what it looks like, I bet.
Oh, boy.
All right. Well, we see you guys next week for the big reveal. Ooh.
We're gonna lift up her skirt.
Ooh.
No.
No.
No, do this and just like blur it out.
Wait. 1, 2, 3.